All right, thanks for coming back. Let's go ahead and dive into our flow and take a look at our how we can build out a use case here. Um, First thing I want to call out, when you go into setup and search for flows, when you create a new flow, there are 6 core flow types. So screen flow, record triggered, so on and so forth. And if you click on all and templates, there's a whole bunch of other stuff here. We are going to be working with a record triggered flow. I already have the flow built, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like and then walk you through basically like what it's doing here. So first things first, over here on the left is where you have your toolbox. This just shows everything that you've built and what it is. I have a variable called top 5 counter variable. This is a number, 0 decimal places, and it starts off with 1. We're going to use that in our loop to basically determine if it's one of the top 5 opportunities based on the amount. Another thing that I wanted to show you is within your resources here, you can define all sorts of fun things in Flow. So variables, you can do all sorts of different things, so true, false, text, numbers, records. You can also do formulas within as a resource. These only exist within your flow. I primarily use variables and formulas within my flows. I like formula. The formula builder in here has come a long way over the last year or two, just in that it's like an actual you can pick stuff from your flow, from your org, and then it's got the functions in there. It's a very user-friendly formula builder now. So when you first select your record triggered flow, you're going to be prompted with a screen that looks like this. You need to select the object that you're working with. So in this case, we're working with the opportunity. You need to determine when you want your flow to fire. So whether that's when a record is created, when a record is updated, created or updated, a record is deleted. If a record is created or deleted, those are things that can only happen once. Updated can happen multiple times. So these ones you may need to think about your criteria there a little bit more in depth. Set the entry conditions. So in this case, I'm only interested when an opportunity is in the closed won stage. You can obviously modify that to be whatever you want it to be. The requirements, you can just have it run every single time and have no requirements. There can be multiple things, one or the other. You can go custom logic, so that would be here are 5 different things, and if these 3 things happen and one or the other of number 4 or 5 happen, you can define that in here. And then if a formula evaluates to true, again, formula builder has come a long way within Flow. This can be a really great way to do it as well. So for instance, if I say record stage name, let's see, is pick val is what I'm after here. So we'll just cut, paste, check our syntax. That looks good. This is the same as what we had before, and then you can build out whatever other logic that you need to here. When to run the flow for updated records. So this would be every time a record is updated, it meets the condition requirements. So in this case, if I have a closed won record and I make any kind of update to it, this flow will fire again. I'm okay with that for our use case. Or only when a record is updated to meet condition requirements. So this would be only when the opportunity is marked as closed won is when I want this flow to fire. I'm okay with this flow firing multiple times because the amount can be updated. You know, things can change on our record, so that's fine. Optimizing the flow for fast field updates or actions and related records. Fast field updates are where you're making the change, where our automation is based on the record that triggered the flow. So when we mark that opportunity as closed won, we're only making changes to that single record. Or actions and related records, we are looking at multiple records, whether it's the same object type or if it's like a contact related to our opportunity. You can do broader things. The fast field updates are much better from a system and performance standpoint. So do fast field updates when you can. But if you need to make an update to more than one record or something related to your record, then use actions and related records. Our flow is going to run immediately. The first thing we're going to do is get all ops where our stage name is closed one. It's descending by the amount. The reason I did that is I want the top 5. So the 5 with the highest amount are the ones that I ultimately will care about when we're running through our loop. You do not have to have it descend, ascend. You can just have it not sorted and just grab every single closed one opportunity, but that would not make sense in our use case. How many records? Only one or all of them? You can't set like I only want 5. That would make this use case much simpler. So we will be getting all of the records. And then how to store it. You can go in and assign variables or choose the fields that Salesforce looks at. I'm just going to automatically store all fields. Next, we have our loop. Let me close this guy here. I just named this guy top 5 loop. Our collection variable, just to be clear, a collection variable is when you have multiple records basically in a bucket. That is called a collection variable. So in this case, all of the opportunities that are in our closed one element that found, we're going to be looking at those and looping through those. And then the order that you want it to go through from first to last. Again, since we have our records sorted when they're being gathered, this is perfect for what we want. Last to first would not be helpful unless we did ascending for our order. Next, we need a decision element. So really there's 4 different outcomes here. The first one is that it's one of the first 5 records to go through our loop, and the checkbox for top 5 closed one is false. The second is it's one of the top 5 and it's marked as true. The third is it's not one of the top 5, but it is marked as a top 5. And then the default is it just doesn't match any criteria. So as far as, I apologize, let's go back in here. As far as the order, this does matter. So if I were to drag this down here or put this up there, that could impact how this behaves. So I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm going to cancel. Additionally, let's say we wanted to look at our actual record that kicked off the flow. You can go into record and look at the amount, for example, and say that was changed. Again, that doesn't make sense for what we're doing here, but as far as building out your criteria for your decision outcomes, it's really that simple. With loops, you need to look at the current item pretty regularly. Just make sure you keep that in mind. With loops, best practices will tell you to not make the actual update to your records or go get records or create records inside of your loop. So we need to use another collection variable for that and make some assignments. The reason is there are limits within the loop. If you do that too much, your flow will fail and it will not be a good time. So best practices, make assignments, add it to a new collection, and then after you're outside of your loop, do the actual update. So in this case, we have one of our records that's in the top 5 that needs to be updated from our decision outcomes. And all we're doing is taking our current item from the loop and we're saying to update that top 5 closed one field to true. Over here, we have the opposite. We have a record that was in the top 5 that no longer is, so we need to remove that. So our current item in the loop, top 5 closed one, we're marking that as false. And then for we have some discrepancies here we need to clean up. Right now, this has everything going into our update me collection, and that's not what we want. I want only this one and this one to go into our update me collection, because what it's going to do is make an update to every single opportunity if all 4 of these outcomes go there, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to connect this to a new element. I'm going to connect it down here. And same thing for our default. I'm going to connect it down here. So basically what's happening is if it's one of the first 5 and doesn't need an update, or if it doesn't fit either criteria of any kind of update, it's just going to come down here and increase our counter. Our counter variable down here, it's every time that we are done within our loop, we're basically just increasing our counter by 1, just so that we keep track of the top 5. After the top 5, I don't really care. But we don't need to add a decision element to sort that out because it doesn't ultimately make that much of an impact from a flow standpoint. So for our 2 updates here, our 2 assignments, these are not updates, they are assignments. For our 2 assignments that are happening, the next thing we're doing is I have another collection variable called update me collection, and we are adding the current item from our top 5 loop into that bucket. So basically, if there is any kind of assignment that's happening to one of these records, we're throwing it in a new bucket, and that new bucket is going to have all the records in it get updated. So after we are out of our loop, we come down here, and our final step is the actual update. So update me collection, pop in here. We are using our bucket, so use the IDs and field values from a record to record collection. So we have our collection collection in this spot here. Done. Save. I still have my warning because of there's too many closed won opportunities that are going to pop up. That's fine. In this case, in the future, I would recommend making sure you're looking at things that are much more specific. This whole use case is terrible. Don't use this use case. Build better things. But hopefully this helps you understand loops. You have a few things up here that matter. So you can actually run the flow. You can debug the flow to see like what's happening at each step. You can create tests, and then you can activate. I'm going to go ahead and activate this guy. Pop back into our list view, refresh so you can see I haven't cheated. We are going to have a situation right here at 5 and 6 because these 2 are the same value, and we don't have any logic in our flow to define that, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and make an update to a closed won record. And it looks like nothing happened, but then you refresh our list view, and voila. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records that have been updated. Like I said, we don't have the logic in place for when this situation happens, when the amount is the same. So we would probably need to look at either created date or last modified date, something like that, to define that with the business as far as what should happen when there are 2 amounts that are the same. But again, this use case is not a use case that you should ever build. This is just to show you how to use loops. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this makes loops make a little bit more sense to you. Please like and subscribe so I can have videos longer than 15 minutes and not have to break them out into a series. And thank you for your time. Thanks for tuning in.